Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick Horde. This is Michael Ray, and you are listening to the Walk-Ins Welcome podcast. We're glad to have you. We are all about helping you triple your patient volume through digital marketing services and exceptional patient experience. Today, we're going to be talking about something we've been getting lots of questions about.
Geofencing.
Oh, Darth Vader showed up today. There it is. Yeah, geofencing. We're getting lots of questions about this, so we thought we would go ahead and just address it to the populace. But first of all, Michael, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. You were on vacation last week?
I was.
Yeah, last week. Now, I don't know when this episode will air, but I had to do an interview without you, and I think it was fine. Everything was
probably better without me.
It still went on for 25 minutes.
No, it's not because of that. It's just sometimes, like, when you have three people talking, it can be a challenge. You step on each other's toes. You're not wanting to do that. You want to highlight the speaker. You want to make sure they're being, the focal point. Yeah, and I like to talk.
Well, but I think we've learned our cues too, so
that's true.
We're pretty clean on that. But
I'm like, you go now.
Exactly. But I will say, like, my questions weren't as awesome as your questions were, but they're more generic. But that's okay. But anyway, so reason why we're bringing up geofencing, we like to bring in topics that we start hearing people ask about.
Right.
So literally in the past 10 days, we've had a couple of people call in asking about geofencing, and I'm not kidding. Every year around this time, people start asking about geofencing. And I'm convinced there's some weird national conference that happens that everybody and their brother attends, and they talk about geofencing. And I'm not gonna lie, geofencing is probably one of the sexiest, quotation mark, sexiest digital offerings out there.
Right.
And it's actually been around for extremely long time. It gets rebranded a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, geofencing is your micro targeting or super hyper targeting on a location at the end of the day.
At the extent of it, that's really all it is. I mean, if you look at the platforms the way from a digital perspective, you're delivering ads to a broad audience on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. You're delivering ads to people with high intent on Google and Bing, those ads platforms, right? DuckDuckGo. That doesn't track you.
I've forgotten about DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, Microsoft bought it. Anyway, that's another story.
Oh man,
they
does
say
it still exist?
Yeah, they talk about how they're private, and yet if I can deliver an ad to you on that platform, you're not private. So
no,
that's a totally different story.
And there was Grace was doing a strategy session with somebody, and they were asking about, how do people if you're in incognito, how do you still get ads? And she's like, well, technically, even in incognito, they're still tracking you to a certain degree.
Yeah, they're just not. They're still tracking you. They're just not keeping up with your history.
No, but I always think it's funny if I'm incognito, I see an ad, I get out of incognito, I end up seeing the same ad.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So it's like it's not as private as you want it to be.
No, they know who you are.
And
then you have the geofencing, which is there's multiple. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about these segments that you built out. But I would like to incorporate. Before we started focusing on clinics and urgent cares, we had, and still do to a degree, a general agency where we just helped all different kinds of people.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some use cases. And the reason I bring that up now is because we're completely focused on medical now, but there was a time where we weren't, and those are the use cases we have.
So let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Wait, do I know which one
Do you
this
have
is?
music for that? Wasn't that one? That's it.
There you go.
That's the one you're
So we're going back in time.
I like the crickets.
The cricket's still going. So here's the thing. We technically can still run geofencing ads. We've done them
in the recent.
Too. But this is what we know. As a standalone thing, it doesn't work.
It's a waste of time as a standalone product.
I will say I wish it worked.
There's a couple of times this worked really, really well for us, but they are very specific types of targeting that we've done. And we're going to talk about that. But as a standalone product, you're absolutely right. It is not. This should not be your main way of advertising,
unless you only care about impressions, which is what we don't do.
That's branding.
Yeah,
and we are patient lead gen. So that's not really going to work out.
I thought you said patiently lead gen. I was like, what's patiently lead gen?
Patient lead gen. So to grasp an understanding of what geofencing is, let's talk to the clinics out there. Let's just say that you own your clinic and probably need to target people who are going to need follow-up visits from the hospital.
Yep.
You can geofence the hospital.
Yep.
Until you can't geofence the hospital. Now, why do I say that? Technically speaking, it violates HIPAA.
Yes.
And
yes. And so like there are like here, and then here comes the sexy part, right?
Right.
In concept, oh my goodness, if I'm a referral based clinic, like maybe an eye surgeon, I don't know, anything that requires some other doctor to get me a patient, right? Mm-hmm. I should just geofence all those doctors.
Except you violate HIPAA.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, like, oh, you know what? They might get an ad, right?
Right.
But that's not how they're like, you know what? My doctor said I need an eye surgeon, and that ad just popped up on my phone. I should click on it. That's, even though that works in the mindset, like it technically works, but it doesn't generate the patients that you think you're going to get out of it.
Correct. So if you're going to wrap something, a digital fence around a location, it has to be around something that isn't medical related. Mm-hmm. In other words, like you can wrap a neighborhood. Maybe there's a neighborhood you're trying to target and you want to do wellness visits in that neighborhood. Yep. Maybe there's grocery stores close by and you're trying to target people in the point is like if you're trying to get new patients, targeting existing patients that are in a patient facility violates their HIPAA rights. And so this is the challenge that we're running into right now. There's a reason we're doing this podcast is because people are wanting to do these geofences and they don't understand that by doing these geofences, there's potential to violate HIPAA. So what are some use cases that we've done in the past, Michael?
So one of them, in the non-medical world, one of them that we had really large success with was, it's not like a payday loan, but it's an installment loan company. Right. And we were able to do some geofencing around basically their interest, right?
Aaron's Rent-A-Center.
Like Buddies, Aaron, stuff like that. Because
Title Max.
Because at the end of the day, it's whether you think you're unique or not, most of the time you're not that unique. And so what you do on a daily basis and your interest is probably reflective of a lot of people.
Right.
And so that was one of those things like, all right, like we know if this type of person is at these different areas, they look at installment loans potentially as well, or they visited a competitor, we can wrap that. That's totally fine. Now, what did it do for us? It generated a lot of traffic.
Quite a bit of
traffic. But we had some challenges identifying, did it increase their lead count as much as it did the traffic?
Right.
And it wasn't like clean cut. And then we've had success with a restaurant. There was an event nearby, and we ran an appetizer ad through geofencing, and that was successful because
that was fun. I remember that was early on.
That was one of our first experiments with it. So it worked. Geofencing works. Quotation marks.
Right. Now there is one cool version of it that we've done that's been successful.
Which one?
Weather geofencing.
Now I will say weather geofencing is pretty cool. We've done that for roofers specifically, where. What does it mean? We geofence an area. So we'll say we're in Birmingham, so we geofence Birmingham. And then we turn on weather geofencing, which says if in Birmingham a thunderstorm warning, whatever it's been reported in the weather system that there's severe weather, the ads turn on. Mm-hmm. And we have a specific set of severe. Did your roof get damaged?
Well, it's winds over 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's thunderstorms with those kind of wind conditions, tornadic activity. Mm-hmm. There's weather patterns that we're geofencing, and it only drops the ads to the people in the areas that are affected by that weather. So let's just say Birmingham 50-mile radius, north of Birmingham is Gardendale. Well, if it only affected Gardendale, the ads are only going to show up in Gardendale.
Yep.
So it's very targeted, and that's a cool use. Wrapping competitors is a cool use.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, geofencing was born out of car dealerships.
Yes, it was, for sure. I'm on a Dodge parking lot.
Here's a Chevy ad.
You got it.
And here's the thing too. It's not, and a lot of people have this misconception. If I'm doing geofencing, if I geofence my competitor and they walk into my competitor's office, their phone will give them alert. No, you can't do that. You physically can't force your phone to give you an alert.
That's called NFC, near field communication.
Yeah, and
they have to have a device local within proximity to them.
And a competitor will never provide that. So
correct.
So at the end of the day, that won't happen. What does happen is that now the targeting says you've qualified to get an ad, which means when you're on apps that accept ads, you may show up as an ad.
I got to tell you something. because there's always a story. So
see, I was missing that last week. I had no stories.
Well, I got stories for everything, man. I'm a storyteller. I can't remember the state. It wasn't Tennessee, and it wasn't Alabama, and it wasn't Mississippi.
Somewhere in the South.
No. It may not have been. I don't know. I just can't remember. It might have been Miami for all I know. But when we drove over the state line, I got an NFC notification on my cell phone that gave me the Department of Transportation's phone numbers. It gave me all this information on a text on my phone.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, that's a pretty cool use of NFC right there. Not geofencing, right? But that's the near field communication that you were referencing that people think it is, and it's not.
Yeah. Well, I even think about how in your maps, when you're navigating and you cross a state line, it's like, welcome to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Your apps now do that now from a map standpoint, but that's not even an ad at that point. That's just the software recognizing you cross state lines.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to what geofencing, like it sounds super sexy at the end of the day. Like it's really, I can do all this. You can, but it's for our medical people, it's not what you think it is at the end of the day. And a couple of things too, like kind of talking about one other side note, you cannot illegal to geofence schools
and playgrounds.
Right. Anything that has to deal with a child.
We tried.
we got a hard
smack on the wrist on that.
Our platform said no.
Yeah, no, they called us.
Yeah, they was like, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, they go, "Y'all are super creative." And just to give you some context, it was for a children's urgent care, and so I tried to wrap trampoline parks and playgrounds and sports complexes for kids. I mean, look, you got to get creative with the marketing, right? Those are where people are breaking things like their faces and their bones and everything else. I'm like, well, let's target those. Yeah, I got the polite slap on the wrist. So there you go. Michael's over here pushing too many buttons. We're going to switch sides.
Oh no,
you're pushing too many buttons. The point what it sounds like we're doing is poo-pooing all over geofencing. What I think Michael is trying to communicate more than anything is it shouldn't be your sole. Like if you have maxed out your Google ads, you're getting good return on investment on your Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Your search engine optimization is rocking and rolling, and you have extra budget that you want to spend because you're not spending it on television, print, or radio.
Yes.
Like, that's the last thing I would do is geofencing.
Yeah. It's one of those add-on to an add-on where it sweetens the pot that's already perfect.
Right.
So, and that's how we lean toward it. And also, just to kind of give you better descriptions on geofencing, they are true banner ads. Like they're very traditional. When you think of banner ad, the little image that may animate a little bit at the top of your screen or to the right of your screen.
On an app.
Yeah, on your phone, not a laptop.
It's not on your laptop. It's not on your computer. It's not on your iPad. It's on a app in your device. So if I open up WeatherBug, that's where it'll show. If I open up CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or
anything that allows an app or any of those in-app purchases, games.
Yeah, so if you go to Google on your phone, you're not going to see that ad.
Nope.
If you go to social media on your phone, you're not going to see that ad. Nope. It is on an app that has been downloaded to a device, right? So how does it work? What happens is you put we use a system called Ground Truth. That is a system that delivers ads that allows us to draw the geos.
It's the go-to industry standard.
Yeah, for the agencies anyway. I don't know about if you do it yourself, but for agencies, that's where we go. And what it allows me to do is to wrap. Let's just say that I own a chiropractor, and I want to wrap the doctor's office because they are getting medical help, but you've got a different solution. So I have a chiropractor office, and I'm going to wrap this doctor's office. I can create a digital fence around that location.
You can really create a fence the size of a car.
You can,
which
like really small.
Don't recommend, but you can.
Right. Yes. So it'd be really cool if you could get that car, and when it's driving, it's constantly geofencing that car. But that's another story. Anyway, so when somebody walks through that digital fence with their cell phone, your cell phone has an IP address that's connected to the internet, unless you turn it off, unless you're in airplane mode. And when they penetrate that fence, it will now serve up ads to you for probably the next week or so, right?
Depends on what you set.
Yeah, it depends on what I set it up as.
Yep.
So that's the penetration of the fence, and then the retargeting that comes along with that. Now, if you don't set up a retarget, it'll only show ads when they're inside of that fence. So you have to know what you're doing.
I will say the retargeting is pretty key for 9 times. So there's some, and so that's like that's the function of it, right? So here's a little bit of a caveat. because we learned this from a campaign that we ran. If you're trying to geofence an event, which is pretty common, right? Like that's one of the things that we've even geofenced the UCA conference.
Yeah, the Urgent Care Association. That's right.
Just because like we could, right? And we did it. Did it result? No, it did not. But at the end of the day, there's the caveat of we wrapped. I'll use our own example. So we wrapped that
Caesar's Forum, right?
Caesar's Forum. But also while we were there, the Subaru conference was going on.
Yep, we got all of them.
There were like 3 or 4 conferences happening at the same time. And unless you know exactly where, and it's a 1 level only building, you're going to get everybody in that building.
Everybody.
And you can't control that.
That's right.
And so if some Subaru people are walking around like, I don't own an urgent care. Like,
yeah, then they were getting ads for it.
Exactly. So like there's a caveat. Now here's a cool part with the retargeting and the tracing you can do with geofencing. If you're very curious where your audience is, if you're on a national scale and you're curious, where's my audience? So you geofence, let's say you have an event, because we did this for one. I love the result.
That was fun.
It was seeds.
Yep.
Which was I didn't know there was an entire conference for seeding, but there is.
When you say seeds, you're talking about the stuff farmers put in the ground.
Put in the ground, grow our crops, and
seed conference.
And keep us fed.
It was at an agri center in Memphis. I remember that.
Yeah, and so big national conference, and I almost forget how we got tied into all this, but
our good friend Ashley.
There you go. And so we geofenced the event. I think it ran for 3 days.
Right.
The coolest part of the whole thing is it followed everybody. So we got to see everybody go back home on a map, and we got to see where all their key people were.
Mississippi's crushing it.
Yeah, that was funny. But
California.
But what it did though, it then gave enough information to say, okay, now we know we can target those cities because there's concentration there in those cities.
That's right.
So there is like a extra benefit there. From like a national scale. From a local scale, you probably won't gain much because they're not going far.
I mean, you could wrap your own urgent care, your own chiropractic, your own whatever.
That's true.
Your own clinic, and then just say, hey, where are my customers coming from? Like we're targeting in a 10-mile radius. Are they coming from 15?
That's
Do I need to
fascinating.
expand from 10 to 15 miles?
That's fascinating,
right? So that could be a way to do it. Although at the end of the day, y'all violating HIPAA if you target somebody that's in a medical practice, they're there for medical attention, and you serve them up an ad because you knew that. That's a violation
because
of their
technically
HIPAA.
you could pull an IP address and you could reverse IP that and figure out who is paying for that IP address,
right?
Which can either reveal the business name, the person's name, or the provider's name.
And just to be clear about this, I'm saying it could. I'm not saying it will.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a big old asterisk gray here.
Yes. What I'm telling you is that if you make a choice to do geofencing advertising for your clinic, I want you to do your due diligence. Like, ask the provider, ask the marketing agency you're working with or whatever, is this in violation of HIPAA for me making this kind of a targeted move on geofencing? So we're going to wrap every hospital around here. Obviously, they're there because they have a health issue. And while they're not volunteering their health issue to you, they're not telling you what their qualm is, what their issue is. Obviously, you don't have their name, phone number, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like you should err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
All right.
Especially at the end of the day, because we know the results aren't stellar. So do you want to risk the caution for a couple of patients?
Well, with that being said, I do want to tell you this. When you have a complete marketing campaign, like, all the other things seem to perform better. That's been our experience.
Yeah, so and that's why we kind of started off with geofencing as a standalone, not so much, but when you add them up to everything else that you're already doing, now it's just sweetening up all tide was the all raising.
A rising tide raises all ships.
Raising, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. Close enough.
Close enough. But anyway, I mean that's it. Like when it comes to geofencing from the side of like that's kind of where we see it going. Now, do we have a negative view? Not truly a negative view, but more of a honest view of it.
I think that's the right way to say it because I've had some fun doing geofencing campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going with your thought because I know I interrupted you.
Well, I'll say it's honest, and we've had our experiences, and we know what kind of works and what kind of doesn't. And at the end, because if you call in right now, and say I want to run geofencing with you, and we actually have this problem where Did you drop your pen again?
Don't ask me. Just leave it down there. Leave it to die. Let the pin go.
Right.
We getting crickets or what? Michael's looking for a button.
Yeah, okay. That was the last pin drop for tonight. All right. Anyway, but
If it had been a microphone, it would have been better. Drop the microphone.
there you
Anyway.
go. All right. But it all boils down to we've had that experience. We've seen what works and what doesn't. And if you call in right now and say, hey, that's the funny part. We rank for geofencing in our
Number one.
in our legacy site. We're number one for geofencing in Birmingham, and we do get calls because of it. It's a thing. But when they call and say, we just want to do geofencing, nothing else. And we'll tell them no.
We've done it.
We've like, no, you don't want this. Because we tried.
Now, I will tell you, though, like, you tell me if I'm wrong, but so we did this. We did a geofencing campaign for that development, the builder.
They built the neighborhoods.
Yeah, but they told us, like, hey, turn that off. We sold out this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Now,
so
they couldn't tell it came from us.
Yeah, and that's the other issue. It was in that very specific scenario, we weren't allowed all the controls that we wanted, so
Right.
we couldn't tie as much to it. Did it sell out their neighborhood? Yeah, their neighborhood did sell out. Did we influence that? Maybe. We don't.
I would love to take credit for it, but they couldn't show me the data.
And they canceled.
And I couldn't show them the data.
Yeah, and they canceled. So
Yeah, they did, so.
And that's the thing. Every time we've tried geofencing, no matter the industry, like there's just limitations behind it.
Right.
And it does not perform. Like it does some, but not to the degree of everything else we offer. That's why it's such a ladder piece to do.
It's either it is the most hit or miss thing that we do.
Yep. It's
Like,
the predictability is low.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I just tell people this is experimental dollars that you want to spend. Well, what if it works? I'm like, that's fantastic, and we're going to go to work for it. We still put in all the effort. We still put in all of our tracking measures. We still make sure that we're doing our due diligence. We're still swapping out ad copy. Yep. We're still doing all the things that we can control. But it's the only time where I will look you, a client, in the eye and say, I don't know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah,
It's the only thing I have. It's not no confidence. It's just I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember even saying that to that neighborhood builder. I said, you're probably going to get cool stats, but the likelihood of this actually working is extremely low. Are you sure? Oh yeah, we just want to try something different.
It is the most vanity metric I've ever done.
It is because like
it'll make you feel like $1 million.
Because when you get like almost 1 million impressions off of $150,
but it's on Candy Crush. I'm just telling you where your ad's showing. It's on Candy Crush.
It's everywhere.
It is. It's on every app that I'm dead serious because I got the ad on Candy Crush.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Heather did.
Yeah,
that's my wife.
Yeah, I love it. But all right, guys. Well, that was once again we wanted to bring an episode to you based on a topic that we keep hearing conversations about. I even talked to another agency yesterday, and I said, "What's this geofencing stuff popping up?" He laughed. He said, "You're not kidding, man! Like they were just asking left and right all of a sudden." And he had the same. He was a competing agency here in Birmingham. Like we just have coffee from time to time because we like them. And he's like, I don't know where it's come from either, just out of nowhere. And we don't like selling geofencing because it doesn't make sense. And
right.
So we're all in the same boat here. But
well, we're trying to do our best practices when we bring this kind of information to you. So.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, that's all we have, and we will catch you on the next one.
Hey, before we go, I just want to encourage you. Leave us a review. We need one. It helps us grow the podcast. It is, I would say, your gift to us for putting this content together and putting it out here for you every week. If you're getting value from us, leave us a review.
The reviews help because right now, if you do a search for medical marketing podcast in Google, we're now showing up as an option.
We are. Thanks to the reviews.
Super cool. Yeah. Love it. And then we're also still getting calls in to help clinics. So
that's the other thing I wanted to say, Michael. I know we're signing off, but we're doing a bad job. All right. The other thing I want to say is, like, if you own a clinic of any kind, chiropractor, massage therapy, I don't know, LASIK, ophthalmology, whatever kind of clinic that you have, urgent care, do me a favor and drop us an email if you're doing this and it's working for you. I want to know what you're doing that's working well.
I want to know if our advice is crap.
Yeah, it could be terrible for this specific. All the rest of it's amazing, but for this particular thing, we admittedly, like, we're getting lots of questions about it, and we've done it successfully and we've done it poorly. So we would rather just be upfront and honest about it.
Yeah, exactly. Very good.
All right, with that, we will see you next Wednesday. Y'all have a great week. Go crush it. What you do matters.